I just think, the arts and everything just that comes out of Europe, I just feel like when I'm there, my soul just has always been there and it just connects. And so if I had it my way, I would be living over in Europe, and instead of doing road trips to states, I'd be doing road trips to countries. And so that's just, I don't know, that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Well, I appreciate that, because I think obviously when people see that description, I think they're intrigued. But hearing you explain why you wrote that, because what I have to say is that, look, we live in the age of the internet where people put up everything. Like you really don't have to have like Yasha's nice pictures and all that stuff. You can literally have some BS up. I mean, you're a good looking person, so you could really get it. You're welcome. You could get away with just putting stuff up and not having the quality that you have with her, and just really, it don't. But it wouldn't be the same. But that's what I'm saying. Like, social media gives us the platform to say that we are something, without necessarily proving that we are something and showing
I love that
evidence. So I think that when I ask you about it, it's not you talking about, oh yeah, I was born and raised in Brookline, but I was always European in my heart. It's like, nah, Doug, that's not how
a little
it works.
Deeper than that.
Right, it's a little deeper. So I appreciate the authenticity behind that description. All right, moving on. When did you discover your love for vintage clothing, film, music, etc.? And how does your love of vintage things influence your art, both modeling and music?
Definitely. I would say, man, I can't even think of an actual age when I really started to fall in love with it. No, you know what? Actually, I will say 11th grade, I was 16 or 17. I really started to dive into old movies. I don't know what it was. I've always loved old films. Like I said, my dad was a lot older. So he would watch the retro station on TV and old shows like Patty Duke, which is in black and white, Leave It to Beaver, which is in black and white. And there's this timelessness, this elegance, especially with the women, that you don't really see nowadays. It's just different. And so I really started to dive into old actresses. And I just became obsessed with just how they carried themselves. Now, all the mess in Hollywood that happens today was happening back then, but there was just, I feel like, a little bit more class. Everything wasn't put out for all of us. It was behind closed doors, which I think mystique is sexy, not putting everything out there. And so once I really started to dive into certain actresses and just kind of studying film and how even things were shot, like Alfred Hitchcock and mysteries, I was just like, wow, like I'm upset I couldn't experience that time and be in that time, but I'm glad I'm living in the age I am now, where I can look back and be like, wow, this was so great, because back then it was just what they were doing. And so that I can't help but have that influence what I do, because even when my girlfriend and I are out shooting, sometimes I like to edit the videos we do. And people sometimes ask me, like, well, where did you get the concept for this? And I know it came from an old film that I watched. And even certain colors and some of the clothing, I'm just drawn to it.
Well, I really appreciate that explanation, because I mean, I like vintage clothing. However, I recognize that one person's vintage is different from another person's.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when I say vintage, I'm probably thinking about the 90s, possibly the 80s. But when you say it, you're going back far. We talking like Casablanca,
yes.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like I get, or even like Harlem Renaissance.
Yes.
And that reminds me of the cat. She was talking about her show. I think it was a Style by Example, and she was talking about the different eras.
Decades.
Yeah, the decades of fashion. And I do really think it's cool, because whenever I'm watching a sitcom, especially when there are black sitcoms, and like they're showing like flappers, or they're showing like swing dancers, or you watch like The Mask with Jim Carrey, and you see like the big baggy suits that he has on and stuff like that. I know what you're saying, and this isn't on here, but I feel like because you brought up the elegance of the past, I would like for you to answer this question. Well, first it's a statement, then it's going to result in a question. So we live in a time now, obviously we have different representations of expression, of creative expression. We have, and this is not me trying to split up black women, because I'm trying my best to be conscious of the fact that
I know where you're going.
You're
with
not
this.
monolithic. However, we do know that there are Cardi B's, there are Meg the Stallions, there are City Girls, but there are also her. There might be a Janae Aiko, or however you say her name, and it might be like a Snow Allegra, and all these different kinds of artists. Now, all of them, I think they have their talent and their positions, and they should all be celebrated in different ways. That doesn't mean we have to like every single piece of work they do, because when it comes to Cardi B, for me, I think I like her music like in a certain setting, but I don't ride around listening to that. But I follow her on Instagram, and it's almost like Instagram. Like for you could be like, somebody might think, oh, she's not the best model, or she's not the best singer, but you can just post something with you and Yash or something, and people be like, oh yeah, I like her. I mean, I don't listen to none of them, and that's where we're at. So anyway, to bring it back to the elegance thing, how do you maintain your love for the classiness of vintage styles without coming off as uppity and unable to relate to people that are more outward with expressing themselves creatively?
Such a good question, because I struggle with this actually. So I do feel awkward at times, kind of. For me, whatever comes natural or genuine to you, do it, because at that point you're living your truth. That's powerful enough, and your audience will know whether or not you're being genuine, which is why Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, which is why, they're all such powerful women, even though they're doing it differently than maybe Janae Aiko, myself, because they're living in their truth. And we feel that, we connect with them. So for me, that's something I'm learning to do now. Being 27, I feel like I am learning to be comfortable with the things that make me different, instead of trying to be something I'm not, because then I just feel awkward. And I feel like when I do that around other people, they feel awkward because they can tell it's not really me, if that makes sense. So really, when it comes to modesty with certain things and not being so out there, I just do it. I just post the pictures. I don't talk about it, because I'm a firm believer that you don't have to talk about what your aura already gives away.
Right.
So people, go ahead.
I was just going to say, they can pick that up from just looking at it, because even one thing, another thing I wanted to comment on is that it's amazing how we talked about complexion, and we talked about how your friends, several are biracial, and they all have different shades, even within your own family. Some of you have some people that are lighter, some people that are darker. And that just made me think about your branding and how we got like some flesh tones going on, because I'm wondering, like, sometimes people, they might be looking at it, and I'll show you an example right here. Now check this out. I'm gonna show you something on my phone. Okay. Now check it out. This is an app right here for the Wi-Fi light right here. Okay. Now check this out right here. Now I go right here, and it shows all the colors. But then when I go here, it kind of like reminds me of like your color palette. Yes. Like and what I think is interesting about that is, like, the light can be here or it can be there or something like that, and it'll change. So now that we're talking about the branding of Angelea, please elaborate on, why did you choose that color scheme? And because, first of all, before you answer, I want to say it looks great, and it's a genius idea, because it's minimalist, but it really is like, I've seen pages where they might do one color like that, where it might be like they might be pastels, and they might have like one of those, but the fact that across the board yours is all like a
swatch,
right? Like it's and to me, obviously, we know that it's not just about black people, but as a black person that thinks about stuff like that, I'm just like, oh, it's like she's talking to all of us just through these little vector colors on her IG page. So please tell me, how did you come up with that branding technique, and why is it so important for you to stay true to that whenever you're posting something on your Instagram account?
Yes, for sure. I love talking about this. So whenever when I first started posting and being more intentional about the cohesiveness of my feed, I was thinking about what colors I'm just naturally drawn to, what colors I wear, what color of lipstick looks good on me, what am I just naturally going to pull from my closet. And they were all neutral peach tones. I remember I was at the mall with my niece, and she was like, well, we know what section Angela's going to be in. And there was like this beautiful plush peachy section of just sweaters, and it was just like, I melted.
It was like heaven.
Yeah, it was me, and that really stuck out to me because at first I was like, wow, am I really that predictable? But really, I said this to somebody and they were like, no, it's almost like dependable. Like they know what to expect.
Yeah.
And you want that for your brand sometimes. Like when people go to your page, it's great to switch things up. And there's going to be a time where I switch it up, but it's not now. Right. But I went to those colors and that swatch because I didn't want to be limited to one color, but I wanted to be able to just be pleasing to the eye with colors and blocks that just match. So I got this swatch in my head, and I edit to that, and it feels like me. I'm attracted to very warm colors, and I want my page to be very warm, romantic, simple. And yeah, that's what I'm always striving for.
Well, I definitely see it. I just pulled up the cover for Aura, and I see that it's right in line. It's right on brand with what you've been doing on your page. So I definitely thank you and all the others in your life that help you to fully bring that vision out, because that consistency means a lot. And I think that comes from your ability to watch black and white movies and not think about color, because that's a hard thing for us to do, which is why black and white will never go out of style.
Never.
It's why when we
timeless.
start, right? It's why. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not
timeless.
It's timeless, right? like the tattoo. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to rush, a wedding or anything like that. But I'm sure y'all two have talked before, and you've talked about colors and things like this. And now, I look at Yash. Yash got the bright yellow. And she ain't like you, So it's going to be a little bit of a battle. It's not just going to be like, oh yes, I love that peach. Sure, I'll do that. No, Yash coming through like, all right. So look, check this out. Like, this is how I get down.
Exactly.
And you're gonna have to work around it. But anyway, what I'm just I had a point somewhere in here, but I'm gonna try to find it. But I just think that your ability to watch black and white videos and to kind of accept them as they are and not try to invent things to make it's like this meal didn't come with a lot of salt and pepper, but you're still able to enjoy the meal because you were hungry and it was there for you, and you're able to take things for kind of what they are. I mean, I know that we're taught don't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Don't take things at face value as 100% accurate. However, sometimes it just is what it is. And I think connecting with your love of those old school movies that have the black and white color tone to it, to your page, which is the neutral peach tones, I really feel like there's definitely a connection between those two things.
I love that because the way, now that you said that, it kind of sparked a point. But with black and white films, it is. I realized trying to show friends of mine and even Yash early on, just meeting each other, the apprehensiveness to watch a black and white film. So many people have that, and for me it's like you're missing out on some of the greatest movies, but it takes away a layer of distraction for me sometimes. And now that I'm thinking about it, because you really are just watching a film with no color, and you're just watching these actors and actresses, and I don't know, the tone of a film can really there's so many things I want to say, but yeah, if you watch certain films, one of my favorite film directors is Wes Anderson, and a lot of his movies are very what's the word, pastel-y. And I remember we went to Colorado, and the trees were yellow, fall foliage, and the sky was a very light pastel blue. And I was like, this looks like a Wes Anderson film. And directors and editors, they're so, and grippers, lighting technicians, I don't know. You know, that's why lighting is so important, because it really sets the tone. And even in black and white films, you can sense the tone just by the lighting. Like, you can't tell the shade, but you can sense that, okay, there's a spotlight here, or there's a shadow here. Like, ooh, that's eerie, you know? And yeah.
No, that's
I just went off, but yeah.
No, you did. Oh man, I know what I just, Malcolm and Marie.
Yes.
So that was to me, I never watched that movie with the expectation of color. Once I knew, okay, they're just not going to step into color, because you know how a lot of times people will do that, and then for a scene, and then they'll move to modern day. No, this whole movie. And there's a Spike Lee one, She's Gotta Have It. And there are movies like that. And now I will admit, I'm not trying to watch those for me personally. I'm not trying to watch them over and over again. However, it is a nice change of pace, and I think that's what you kind of represent. You're a breath of fresh air. You're something.
Wow, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's like you're something. You're something foreign, because we don't see it a lot. Yes, you're foreign yet familiar. It's kind of like, and then even when, and sorry, now you might not in this part, but even when I think about like you, and we talk about complexion, racial ambiguity, it's like, so maybe to the naked eye, you're foreign. Oh, you're not one of us. You're not my people. You're not gonna get like you behind you at the Social Security office. I'm trying to get my Social Security. Oh no, I'm black. She ain't gonna give me a fair shake. But then you start looking. Wait, it's like foreign yet familiar. So I feel like
what are you?
Right. So even though I know that can be triggering for people that are on the fairer end of the spectrum,
I don't mind it, honestly.
Okay. I appreciate that. I do think that the foreign yet familiar thing is why you have such a love for like European countries, even, because it's like this film is foreign yet familiar. There are subtitles, but there's something familiar. There's something in everything you do artistically that brings you back to, even if I haven't, it's weird, because even though somebody could be like, look at Angelea, she's stuck in the past, it's actually something quite futuristic about the way that you're thinking, because you're actually able to say, the reason why I keep going back there is the same reason why you could say Chadwick Boseman in the Black Panther, why he kept going back to the ancestral place whenever he had to make a big decision, because he knew that he didn't want to repeat the same mistakes that his father made. So he wanted to get information from him to be able to go forward. So with you, it's almost like by you being able to reach back with your style, you're able to push things forward, whether it's your music, whether it's your modeling, or whatever you're doing. And that's what I see.
I love that. Yeah, because like for me, it's a fusion. It's a fusion of what I love from the best parts of the past and the beautiful parts of the present. And I feel like just who I am as a person, I'm a very nostalgic person and very melancholy, which I never really liked, but everything's a balance. So you can't be too stuck in the past. But it's okay to go back there sometimes. And loving vintage things, I live there a lot. And so I have to, I'm just naturally comfortable with pulling from that. But then I'm also a modern girl living in 21st century. So I really love fusing those things together, for sure.
Okay, speaking of vintage, who are some vintage artists that you derive the most inspiration for your artistry?
Inspiration. I would definitely say Sade.
Okay.
She was like always played on family road trips. There's just something about the simplicity of her songs, yet they're so powerful. They just move you, whether it be the instruments or the rhythm. They're warm and just sultry. And I really love that, because even if you're not a Sade fan, I feel like if you listen to any of her songs, you can have an appreciation. And I hope that's something that even if people don't like my music, they can have an appreciation for what I was trying to do, or see something in it like, oh, okay. Like I didn't think she would go there, but that's interesting, Also, I love Sam Cooke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 50s, 60s era, I really love. The Supremes, love the Supremes. It's hard though, because a lot of my inspiration for my music is coming from a lot of today's singers. But there are tons of vintage and older musicians and artists, like I just named, that I do look back to and that I listen to.
Yeah, because one of my favorite singers. So and it's not just because I'm from Philly, but that does help. But I would say,
ooh, who is it?
Well, Jasmine Sullivan.
Okay,
because because the thing is with her, I feel like she has a very distinct kind of voice, and I feel like there are some people whose voices, like, to go back to the movie Dreamgirls,
yes,
where he was talking to Dina,
yes,
and he was saying your voice lacked personality. And that's why it's so easy for us to put you on any record, because you don't have personality. Whereas
it's like being typecast.
Yes, but and which is like, no one wants to be. If you're Jaleel White, you don't want to be Urkel for the rest of your life. Right. However, what you also have to think about, but you're one of the most memorable characters ever. Right. So it's kind of like somebody like Jay said on Soul Paul. He said, "Would you rather be overpaid or underrated?"
Right.
And it's like, look, just pay me or overpay me, and let everybody else figure out like where I belong. But
exactly.
I'm still going to believe I am who I am. But yeah, so with Jasmine's not going to be on all the fast clubby type records, because the way her voice works as an instrument,
yep,
it needs to be done a certain way. We talked about sultry. So if you say Jasmine, Ari Lennox, you can't just put them on anything.
Exactly.
There are other singers where it's like, if I'm, and I hate to do this, but I don't know these people, I'll never meet them. But if you're more like a Sierra, then you know, you can kind of just take, take whatever, maybe Carrie Hilson, like certain ones is like Ashanti, where it's just like, okay, you can be here, you can be here.
Yep.
But when you say Jasmine Sullivan, it's something different.
And even Jill Scott.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Like, speaking of Philly, right, like they're in their own lane. And they're really good at that lane, because that lane comes naturally to them. And that's not for everybody. Okay,
another thing I want to build on with you is this idea of, I think because social media, it triggers our low attention spans, then what ends up happening is that because we have people that might be Forex traders, or maybe they sell Herbalife, or maybe it is whatever they do, and because there's always someone's like let me say it like this. I agree when people say you need multiple streams of income. You're right. You need more than one way to make money in case one way falls off. You have a fallback plan.
Right.
However, I feel like multiple streams of income, when you also connect it with someone that is a jack of all trades, I feel like what can be happening is, the saying about being a jack of all trades with a master of none, because then what can end up happening is, like, if you don't define your lane, that what ends up happening is I'm over here and I'm listening to the Angelea album, and it's going in so many different directions. It's one thing to have an umbrella, and underneath the umbrella, you're going in different directions.
Yes.
But it's another thing when you're saying, today I'm going to rap like 50 Cent. Tomorrow I'm going to rap like Flo Rida. It's like, if you said 50 Cent, maybe Kendrick Lamar or something like that, it's like, okay, they're different, but okay, I get what you're saying. But I just feel like there's a temptation to want to drive in a bunch of different lanes, whereas maybe, and Yash can explain this better than me, but I'm sure when y'all driving, whoever's driving, I'm sure somebody might like the fast lane and just like, let's get there. Other person might be like, nah, let's slow this down, let's chill. Let's not get mad at even though it is annoying if we got a long ass road trip, but
right.
Let's not get mad at the person that want to be in the slow lane, because if that's where they feel comfortable and I don't have to drive, then I just need to shut the hell up and just be thankful that I'm not driving right now. So to bring this all back to you, how do you master like one lane at a time, when I feel like there's so much outside pressure? Not saying that you look at other artists as competitors, but when I just feel like the whole saying about comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Like human nature makes us compare, even if we go to therapy and we tell ourselves comparison is wrong. We shouldn't do this. It's human nature. So how do you stay true to what you do in your lane without feeling pressured or giving into the pressure of doing something different to keep up with the Joneses?
Well, I struggle with that every day. And that's something that, releasing Aura, my first single, I really had to work on, because there's a quote that stuck out to me, and it changed me stepping out or not. And it's, how's it go? It says, the world is waiting for what you have to offer.
Okay, I cut you off. You were saying?
Yeah, so when it comes to comparison, I just really try to not be jealous or compare now that's something that I'm always going to do. People are just always going to do. You can't help it. But I'm really stopping myself. If I'm watching an artist and it's like, wow, I don't sound like this person, or wow, my songs are so different and like everyone's loving this, it's like, stop, because they're doing what they were meant to do. And that's why, the universe or God is like rewarding their efforts, because they stepped out and they're doing what they're good at. And when I step out and I do what comes naturally to me, what flows naturally, if I don't fight it by trying to be something I'm not, then I will also be, rewarded, for my efforts. And so that's what really keeps me going. I still get in funks about certain things, and I give myself a day. But then the next day it's like, okay, you have work to do for yourself and why you're here and what you were supposed to put out into the world. So just focus on that, because it'll come.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to internalize the saying of what God has for me is for me.
Yes.
It's just easier said than done, because you can say what God has for me is for me, and then you see one of your homies is just doing this, and it's like,
it's a lifelong battle, I swear.
Yeah, because some of the people I look at, I really like that more black people. It's one thing, I think black people have always traveled, but now that travel vlogging is a real industry where you can get paid to travel, because I know a couple of them. And I will admit, I'm a little bit jealous of them, because I really dig that. I really like that a lot, and I think eventually I'm gonna get to that. But
you will.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, what are your top 3 vintage music albums? And vintage could be music albums. It really is. Whatever.
I'm so bad with like albums. I feel like I never know people's actual albums. Let me think. We might have to circle back.
Okay. We can come back.
Cool.
We can come back.
Cool.